And welcome back to the Nutrimedical Report. I get some interesting consultations. I had an unfortunate gentleman had an industrial accident back in August of last year, and apparently had fallen in work into a large bin, fracturing his left hip, and unfortunately is also his lower leg. And a lot of the issues apparently were not early identified, so he developed clotting, chronic pain syndrome, developed, of course, because of disuse, not only a clot there, but also required screws and pins in his leg, which of course is necessary. It's a necessary surgery. But you want to build up the bone, you want to stir up the pain and inflammation, you go on to get off all the crazy meds, which, by the way, were making him develop edema because of the blocks of his blood vessels. He was on, of course, all kinds of weird things like, diuretics, furosemide, which is, by the way, not a very good diuretic because it's very short-acting. And he was on hydromorphone and Tylenol. Tylenol, by the way, just blocks substance P. It doesn't actually stop the actual cause of the pain. And hydromorphone works on what's called the pain modulators in your brain. It doesn't work on the tissue. So none of those treatments are very good for pain. You want to stop the pain generators and the pain gate in the skin. So that's important. And then also we're trying to see if we can stop the inflammation. So the first treatment for this poor gentleman that injured his leg, and I'm sending the protocol to him, would be Cell Defense. And of course, in a few weeks when we have the new Cell Defense Plus, 2 caplets or 2 capsules 3 times a day, Inflamex 5 capsules 2 to 3 times a day, and a topical pregnenolone and curcumin cream, Lumen Photon therapy, setting number 7 for pain and Nico, and you can use it a number of hours a day. And you could also wear a micropulse over the particularly weak areas of bone, like the hip that fractured or the other areas you're trying to heal. For osteoporosis, of course, we talked about this before, bone generator. The bone generator, of course, is the hydroxyapatite crystals, type 1 collagen, growth hormones, and adhesion factors. Micelle D3, which is vitamin D3. Myco D2, which is a mushroom base with ergothioneine to stimulate the stem cells. And full vitamin K2. And you can add Collagen Max and Mountain Red Velvet to that, because you need the collagen. 42% of the dry weight of your bone is collagen. So you're trying to rebuild it. For clots, we start off with things to improve the blood vessel wall, which is cardiovasc, ellagic acid, and Vein-Away, and the use of Omega Supreme Krill. And then also nattokinase to reduce blood clots. And if you want a special order, we can get you also the lumbrokinase. Nattokinase we have in stock right here. Prostatism. This gentleman also showed a very high prostate level test, and of course the first thing to do, and they're trying to push, the first thing they're trying to do is they want to push for a prostate biopsy. I tell people, do a free and combined PSA. It's covered by insurance. It's a conventional and advanced test. It'll determine if it's due to prostatism, which is a serious infection in the prostate gland, which can raise your PSA quite dramatically. If your free and combined PSA indicates there's a likelihood of cancer, then you can do a transrectal ultrasound and needle biopsy and have it reviewed by a pathologist with a karyotype analysis. I strongly recommend that you start taking anti-cancer nutraceuticals to prevent the spread of the cancer when you go to do the biopsy, and that means take ellagic acid, Inflamex, Maligna Block, and the full vitamin K2 Power C, because you want to make sure that those cancer stem cells can't spread by the needle biopsy. For prostate cancer, we use a combination of Nutridefense, which has anhydrous catechin that actually in the studies have shown that it actually stops prostate cancer, Vision Max, a capsule twice a day, and of course for prostatism is Prostate Flow, and we recommend usually if it's real severe, 2 to 3 soft gels at least twice a day. For maintenance, you may be down to just 1 twice a day once the problem is settled. There often is infection in the prostate gland. It can be all kinds of Trichomonas vaginalis, fungi, virus infections, all kinds of things can actually grow in the prostate gland. And I recommend you take the Allicin Med, at least 1 to 2 capsules 3 times a day, Nutridyne 15 to 20 drops 3 times a day, and Silver 100, along with Nutridefense, which will boost your natural immunity to fight infections, especially and also intracellular pathogens or viruses. Prostate can be infected. It also can have heavy metals in it and xenoestrogens. So sometimes when the prostate's enlarged, the xenoestrogens act like a stimulant to make the gland grow. So xenoestrogen detox can help reduce the swelling along with the prostate flow. And the Inflamex I already mentioned is also very helpful along with the Cell Defense. It will get rid of cancer stem cells, because if your gland is inflamed long enough, you'll develop cancer stem cells in the gland itself. Interesting, eh? So what I want people to understand is that we can now identify what's going on in someone, and we can do both advanced and conventional testing. The transrectal ultrasound with needle biopsy is not, people think, well, that's alternative care. No, this is integrative and comprehensive functional medicine care, and I never recommend proton therapy or gold seed therapy for cancer, radiation therapy. I never recommend paint-by-numbers chemo. If you're going to do drug use against the cancer, you want to do testing where you use the biopsy sent off to, say, Cambridge, Massachusetts laboratory to measure the genetics of the specific cancer you have, and you want to use off-label use of drugs to actually switch the genes back to normal, which you can retest. So never do paint-by-numbers chemo, never do radiation, and you'll always do surgery for the following. If you got a blocked viscus, like a tube of your blood vessel, your tube of your bowel or stomach, or the cause of pain if it's compressing against a nerve fiber bundle, or it's causing anatomical loss of range of motion or other problems, or severe deformity. Those are all indications for doing a surgery, and I also recommend you take our anti-cancer nutraceuticals for at least 2 weeks beforehand, so it will prevent the spread of the cancer by grabbing those cancer stem cells and preventing the metastases with things like Inflamex, cell defense, malignant block, malignant arrest, etc. Because if you take those 2 weeks in advance of surgery, whether it's a lumpectomy and node dissection, or you're going to remove the bulk of the tumor because it's compressing against nerves or whatever, you're less likely for it to spread again. So our nutraceuticals are developed not just here, but we've collected them from the best places on the planet. And whether you're doing conventional care or alternative, you're going to be much more successful at conquering your cancer without having major complications if you use our nutraceuticals, even if you do conventional care. So it's up to you. We mentioned earlier how often we get questions about how to take our Nutrimedical. Usual dosage for maintenance, just from Fukushima Daiichi and others, is for an adult 5 to 10 drops twice a day, usually 5 drops at least twice a day. For a child, it would be whatever fraction of that weight. So if it's a 30-pound child, they'll be taking 1/5 that dosage, which would be like anywhere from 1 to 2 drops twice a day to 3 drops twice a day, but usually 1 to 2 drops. If you don't want to give it to them orally in their juice or water, or you can actually put it topically on an area like their forearm, and it'll be absorbed through their skin as well. So that maintains some levels of iodine. Now, if there's a big surge in radiation, or you're expecting that you're detoxing because they've had exposure to fluoridated water, you want to increase that dosage quite a bit. Let's see, we have, wow, sometimes I get some really long emails here. Oh yeah, this gentleman here, I have been responding to him with quite a extensive email. In fact, I sent him his protocol here a while ago. Let's see now. This is about someone who had apparently Christian patriots, and they were very concerned because they were exposed to Lyme and mold. And of course, also the dogs, according to the veterinarians, have also apparently possibly been diagnosed also with Lyme. And these are, by the way, immunologically positive tests. They weren't just kind of conjectures. And of course, they live in a small farmette in Beltsville, Maryland. It spread out from Lyme, Massachusetts over the last 30-some years, so it's all over the place. And Lyme originally was a biological weapon developed in this Class 5 installation on Long Island, New York, many decades ago now. Someone's asking for tetrahydrobiopterin, which we had a year or so ago. We had some unreliability in terms of supply, so we discontinued it, but we apparently may get it back. You can make your own tetrahydrobiopterin, which is good for depression. Just taking Samethyl, Bio-LVR, Superfolate, and Pyromethyl B12, and take our Minerals Plus for the cofactors for the bioconversion. So your body makes lots of it. It's useful for maintaining nitric oxide in your blood vessel walls, neurotransmitter levels, for reversing depression. But as I mentioned earlier, our depression protocol is very effective. You do not need to spend a lot of money to try to get tetrahydrobiopterin. Although for those people who are insistent, and if we do get a reliable supply, and welcome back. And I promised that I would have the latest newsletter from Power of Prophecy from Tex Mars and his analysis of Trump. And it's interesting how he shows a picture of Trump as a, it looks like a knight as a dragon slayer, and there's dragons there. There's 10 points, and I want to expand on these a bit, but I'm going to use the template of Texas newsletter. He'll be back on the program to talk about this and many other topics about this crazy election cycle, what's going on in world events, and the rapid movement toward a cashless society. Coming up, by the way, on the 19th and we'll be expanding on this. The articles are posted over on clayandIron.com on the Palmyra Gate to Baal, and of course the ceremony started on a very ominous date, the date of Columbine massacre, etc., and also the Oklahoma City bombing that occurred around the 19th of April, which is 13 days of ancient sacrifice in Canaanite areas in the Middle East, etc., that are quite ominous. Those days actually start with the feast of Baal and end up with the feast of Moloch. It's called the Days of Beltane. So let's start off with the 10 items here from Donald Trump. Slayer of New World Order Dragons is a caption under smiling Donald Trump. Now, he has lots of warts. He is brash. He's a tough businessman. Some of those things, I think his wife and his daughter have actually recommended they get rid of his Twitter account, which I agree with as well. He needs to be more presidential and not to kind of counterpunch. And if he does counterpunch, it should be on items like Heidi Cruz's direct involvement with the New World Order and the North American Free Trade Agreement and CFR and Goldman Sachs, which has now been fined by Obama another $1.3 billion. So it's a way of Obama getting money without going to Congress. Number one, immigration. Trump wants to build a wall 1,000-mile long and police the borders. You also have to police the ports of entry, including airports, seaports, because a lot of the illegal drugs are brought in here by submarines, believe it or not, on the California coast from Mexico, from the Baja. So they need to be aware of that. The fact is the CIA, the Department of Injustice, and that's why I get a kick out of Obama and his comments to Chris Wallace dealing with an interview in Fox News yesterday that was posted up, that somehow, Obama tries to slide through and schmooze through all these issues. The Department of Justice directly went after conservatives. The IRS directly went after conservatives. There's no such thing as a non-corrupt. So this is a political action. So what they're trying to do is an end run around. So number one, it's going to be part of the problem. There are illegals that come across. And by the way, most of the people that come across here to find work can't afford the normal immigration process and fees. So they come here illegally because they can. And we should have a guest worker program that's vigorous. And instead of having them cross the desert and dying of starvation or thirst, they should have air-conditioned buses, bottled water, and ship them back to Mexico when they finish picking fruit and doing other things. And this idea of trying to interdict their money so they can build a wall is not a good thing. So you need to revise your plan, Donald. The best way to do that is to have tariffs and other things to make sure, but you can't, interdict in people that are sending money back for their homes in Mexico. But what you can do is you can start deporting people, and you want to have a rapid system of immigration. People are hardworking, relatively poor people that are not criminals. Those people need to be able to come here either in guest worker visas or apply over a period of a decade or more to become citizens. Need to proper vet people. There should be no Muslims coming into this country until they can fix the system. When you have illegal passports from Syria where 2 printing machines were seized and they're coming in legally with sort of proper-looking passports, but in fact they're actually members of Al-Qaeda or ISIS or ISIL, as Obama says. So, this is part of the solution. But, Donald, your biggest problem is $2 trillion of illegal drugs brought in by the CIA, the FBI, and the Department of Injustice with things like Fast and Furious. So you've got an internal cancer inside the body politic of the American system. So just putting up a wall is not your whole solution. It's a small part of the solution. And again, you need a guest worker program and revise the immigration. Number 2, rule of law. Trump demands government actually obey the immigration laws and deport illegals. Firstly, you can't just dump people back into a country. You need to have a place to dump them. And not only that, if they're born here of illegal parents, how many people you're going to need to go to the Supreme Court because you're going to get into a legal melee there. What you need to do is have a system where you can have where they can't get citizenship, where you don't get an anchor baby and all of a sudden bring all the relatives, but you can deport people, especially those who have served, say, 1 or 2 terms in the military that from police and other records that are actually involved with drugs and other things. They don't need to be just deported across the border so they can slide back again. That Cates Law should have been passed by both the Congress and the Senate, which are Republican, and the fact that Mitch McConnell and these other people didn't grasp it is pretty evil. So, trying to just deport them isn't a solution, especially if they're criminals. They need to be deported to a prison. So you don't take a convicted repeat felon and just send them across the border so they can come back here one way or the other in an airport or a boat or whatever. You need to deport them to a prison in their home country. And number 3, trade. Trump calls on our establishment leaders that are stupid and incompetent. I agree with him. I think that you don't want trade agreements like the Trans-Pacific Partnership or the Transatlantic Partnership. You want individual trade treaties with specific groups. And, of course, Europe's trying to act like it's one trade bloc with the European Union, and the nations are trying to get out of the EU because it's killing them. It's causing them to go bankrupt. For example, the Greeks can't sell more than a certain quota of cheese or other goods and so on that are very unique to Greece that could probably get them out of debt in no time at all. But they're not allowed to, and they can't have their own currencies as well as the euro, like the drachma. So, no, I agree with Trump 100%. I think he needs to do things like talk to Carrier. But, you need to know that Ivanka Trump has clothing lines that are made in foreign countries. No, of course, it's okay to do business, but the problem is if you're building these clothing lines in foreign countries, why not do them here? So there needs to be a little house cleaning as well. Number 4, jobs. Plans to re-employ the middle class. Well, bringing back manufacturing is good. I don't think that we want to move into what's called service or high-tech economy only, especially a lot of people are blue-collar people that don't want to do high-tech. They're just not made up for it. And when you get 95 million unemployed Americans and they kind of keep on fiddling with the unemployment rules saying, well, you're not seeking employment, so you're not unemployed, this is a big lie. So when I see the smirking, sliding, sniveling Obama trying to lie to Chris Matthews, it's very disturbing. We need what's going to happen, the big revolution is actually not being moving manufacturing to foreign countries, but it's going to be robotic manufacturing with very few engineers and the robots making things. So the blue-collar middle class is being pushed out of the marketplace by new high technology. And we need to re-engineer our economy so that people can still, quote, earn a living income, even with blue-collar skills here in America, building things that can be built like Nabisco crackers and automobiles and other things. And it'll always need some people because only parts of the car will be made by robots like welding, the frame and things like that. But the high-tech stuff of putting in delicate things that require the right touch will be people. Number 5, blacks and minorities. I'm amazed that people of minorities do not understand that Trump is for them. When young male blacks have 55% unemployment, the guy that's going to fix it better than Cruz or anybody is Donald Trump. You want a job? You want to support Trump. You're an American Hispanic or Mexican person, an American citizen. You want Trump. You want to get rid of the, you want to call the slave plantations and the urban ghettos and the drugs and so on. Trump is going to help clean it up. So there's another dragon. All shoppers, it's time to place your orders at Nutrimedical. If you want to stay well, we're the place to go. 888-212-8871. We also provide free advice. If you email or call at 888-212-8871 or email, and we'll give you the starter protocol. I'll also give you recommendations on the combination of the right conventional and advanced and functional medicine to get well, and the right types of tests to do if you're really curious and want to spend the money to actually do the testing, whether it's advanced imaging, lab tests, genetic tests, organic acids, immunotoxicology, etc. Or if you want to do tests like QRMA and other testing, we provide that advice as well. So I want to continue with giving some of the information here regarding the latest news there. And I find Tex quite super intelligent in his bullet points here. These are really good. We're going to expand on them when we get the Tex on the program. Number 6 out of his 10 is interventionism. Trump intends to bring the troops home and stay out of foreign wars. He'll let Russia and Putin take out ISIS and defend Syria. No more insane wars for Israel and the Middle East. We don't need foreign oil, and we'll mind our own business. Well, the problem is we actually create the crisis by going into Libya and Iraq and creating these messes. For example, remember Colin Powell talking about his weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. It's all a lie. Is to say the joke is, how did our oil get under their land? And then when we did get the oil, we gave it to the China Oil Company, which before Gulf War was not even existent, and now after, it's the 5th largest oil refining company in the world. It's just ridiculous. So I don't believe in non-interventionalism, but I believe that we need to intervene surgically, and we should be collaborating. I don't think we should not be involved. I think we should collaborate with the Russians and Chinese to get rid of the problem with extreme Islam, Wahhabism. In fact, even the Saudi Arabian government, even though they have a double standard there, in a sense, some of their rich kings or called sheikhs in their kingdom are actually supplying support, and Wahhabism has started there. I think it's what's really pretty crazy is on the one hand that 28 pages, which was on the 60 Minutes program the other night. Basically, they're trying to paint this in the 60 Minutes program, and somehow it's an independent group of people in San Diego and LA, etc., that actually did this, when in fact they had to have collaboration with the U.S. Air Force, like Air Force with NORAD, because it was a simulation. It was a war game. Let's face it, without collaboration inside the U.S. military and Air Force, without collaboration with inside the elements of the intelligence community, including the NSA and CIA and U.S. Space Command, which were putting the false icons on the screens. And I know, because I knew the senior commanders of the radar command that were involved with NORAD, with not only that, but war games they told me were coming in 2001. So when I hear this foolishness to try to say it was just independent, people here in America, like Anwar al-Awlaki, etc., who was an American-born Muslim that literally, trained people to actually do terrorism. No. It's not just independent Muslims here in America. They're fully supported by CIA. They're fully connected to the Air Force and other agencies in America where there are corrupt elements. It doesn't mean the whole agency is. It means there's corrupt nests of them all throughout our intelligence community. And we have a fourth arm of government since the assassination of John F. Kennedy. So when I see this report on 60 Minutes, it's a bold-faced lie trying to pretend that somehow the World Trade Center towers could come down with nukes that were placed there by Israeli Mossad nuclear agents under the direction of the CIA and Marvin Bush. At the same time that they are trying to say that it was just independent Saudi Arabian connected people and money that was flowing in from there, and the Saudi government itself wants the 28 pages. Of course they do, because they know this is a cover-up of the fact that Saudi and Israeli elements were involved directly in 9/11 under the direction of the CIA and were directly connected with these war game simulation, which are my contacts, and I know them firsthand, not secondhand, were putting icons on the computer screens of false jets and aircraft, and they didn't know during the simulation what was real or not. That's why, for example, and I differ with people that think that it's possible that a jet went into the Pentagon. They had aircraft parts in the building for months beforehand in a particular sector that was hit by a missile. And if you look at the aerodynamics and possible, and I took care of pilots flying out of Air Force Academy, which is a Top Gun Academy in Colorado Springs, and I have contacts inside the Air Force to tell me it's absolutely impossible for a large wide-body jet at that velocity and that altitude over the ground for a ground effect would be able to go into the Pentagon without knocking down those light towers, and giant pieces of their engines and wings, etc., being outside and in the parking lot in the front before the Pentagon. So, no, that's total hogwash, same as the so-called cover-up of the 9/11 Commission. The fact is they don't want to talk about the fact this was a self-inflicted wound to bring in the Patriot Act, which was already being rebuilt for years before with the support of the PNAC document that Heidi Cruz was actually involved writing, along with other authors, and the North American Free Trade Agreement. So let's face the music. We have evil elements within our government, including people like the Vice President of the United States under George Bush, whose actual name when he went into the White House, and he was into the offices there, his name was called the Prince of Darkness. Okay, so let's get a life. Okay, I know inside contacts firsthand, and I can tell you this is a war game simulation that went live. So as far as foreign interventions, no, we have to surgically intervene. We're the world superpower. We can't leave the world alone, especially with Islam, and we need to collaborate. So I disagree on that. And interventionism, don't do stupid wars like going into Libya and breaking up the empire, and like Donald Trump says, he would have been better off if Saddam Hussein and Muammar Gaddafi were there. We could tie them up financially so they don't do things we don't agree with. Look at Obama, this moron who gives $150 billion to the Iranians and doesn't tie it to their missile testing programs. And the mullahs And the current president of Iran gives America the middle finger when we tell them that they're doing missile tests and writing on the side in both Farsi and in Hebrew the destruction of Israel. How ridiculous. And then Obama tries to smirk through this in this interview with Chris Matthews. Number 7, veterans. The wicked cycle of bleeding young men and women in foreign conflicts and treating them as pariahs back home may be over. Well, the problem is you have a system we call the VA for very awful hospital system. You can't just close them. You need to completely change and overhaul the system of the way you deal with veterans. Number 1, there's long lines. There's incompetent people that are brought in here that are not properly qualified doctors, nurses, and health professionals. The best thing to do would allow them to go to the regular hospital systems, which there's lots of stretch, and just give them insurance and let them go where they want to go, whether it's across state lines or whatever. So my impression was, firstly, if you're going to fix the VA system, number 1, you've got to start doing a lot of firing and rehiring, and you got to give insurance to the veterans so they can go wherever they can get the best care that they need to, even if it's out of state. And number 8, climate change. And I agree with Trump wholeheartedly. I'm one of the founding members of Greenpeace back over 40-some years ago, back in the early 70s, and I can tell you, doing oceanography before I went into medicine, it's obscene that these political numbskulls, including the Pope, thinks that he can push climate change as due to carbon credits, and that we're going to start a carbon tax, which is basically a UN tax, so they can have a rapid reaction force, military and humanitarian services force under the control of the United Nations. So then you will really have a global government. It'll come out completely out of the dark from the secret agencies that are running the world already, the CIA, NSA, and other agencies, trying to crawl into bed with Russian and Chinese agencies so they can get total control of the planet. And it's not working because the Chinese, Russians, and the BRICS nations are not going along with the financial plans of the Federal Reserve and the European Union and the Euro, etc. Number 9, entitlements. The establishment is just aching to cut back on Social Security and Medicare. Thank God, of course, Trump is not going to do that. In fact, he says, I'm going to grow the economy, so it'll stop that. He's going to stop giving welfare to unqualified illegal aliens. My plan is quite different than either any of the other politicians in terms of what they should do. Number 1, they shouldn't give a reverse tax. What they should do is they should top up the minimum wage to an employer, a small business person, so the person gets, let's say, $15 an hour, but don't hit the small businesses and say, you got to pay $15 an hour even though you can't afford to, and it drives them out of business. And you don't want to reverse tax because it'll attract people to come here just to sit around and collect money. And welcome back, and we are going to continue our list here. Top of the hour, we have our amazing guest, who's on periodically, Lowell Ponte, at least once a month, and of course his co-author Craig Smith, who is a billionaire financial expert as well. Number 10 is Christianity. The era of Christian hating and anti-Christianity rules may be ending. Political correctness, for example, we talked about this, and we'll be having back on the program Bill Warner from politicalislam.com, and of course the latest DVD set from Jonathan Gray shows it very clearly. We are being invaded by Islam called Hiraj, and we have political correctness. In fact, in Princeton University, one of the supporters in the university for Bernie Sanders, they even probably owe Bernie. They actually want to get rid of the First Amendment so you don't have the freedom of speech because they don't want you to criticize anybody. Well, telling the truth is important, including Islam, which preaches hatred, jihad, violence, and violence against innocents and the weak. So the fact that they can't say Merry Christmas, and again, I like this about Trump, it says, you can say Merry Christmas and it won't be taken off when you're shopping in the so-called holiday season, and elevating Islam and other crazy holidays when it's actually Christmas. So, I'm not a hardline person. I do believe that the Christmas celebration isn't the actual birth date of Jesus. Academically, it's probably Sukkot, which is in the fall, which makes total sense because he's 6 months. A difference in age from John the Baptist. We know that John the Baptist was born on Pesach Passover, so the fact is there's a 6 months difference there, so it was the fall. So he says he will end the 501c3 scam, and of course that's great because churches, interestingly, if you go to synagogues, half of the discussion isn't to deal with their latest teachings and so on, and reading from the Torah and other writings. Half of it's dealing with business and what's going on in local politics. So, the funny thing, and I got to say this, part of the reason why Christians don't get it all right is because they disabuse some of the truths that the Jews continue to carry. One of them, the fact that they're the people of the book. They may not understand totally the Bible, including even the coming of Messiah, but they knew that number one, Lord God is one, not three. They also knew and very clearly understood that they understood that a lot of truths in terms of, for example, about what's going on in the world, and a lot of Christians basically just don't understand some of these basic principles, and we'll get into that in some other shows. Goodbye corrupt media, the mainstream establishment media, that means CBC, NBC, etc. Basically, after this election cycle and all the foolishness they've done, even with the lawsuits, they'll basically continue to implode, which they've been losing audience for many years, but it's going to get even worse. And they corrupt political establishment, people like Mitch McConnell, House Speaker Paul Ryan. These guys are part of the cabal trying to see if they can remove Trump's nomination as a GOP nominee. The Republican Party, as I said, this is just a joke, but they should have, or probably did in some sense psychically. They went to Japan to learn at one of their temples how to commit harikari. Now they're committing political harikari. They are gutless already, but they're going to soon be remove the guts of the party, and the Republicans will be no more. So they won't be a valid party in the future if they continue to do what they're doing. Because even if Trump gets a nomination, if they continue to try to disabuse him, there won't be enough voters to actually support Trump and win the general election. Interestingly enough, the negatives on Hillary are so much that even if she steals the nomination, many of the Democratic voters may stay home too, even though some people say they think that Bernie voters will go for Hillary. I don't think so. You may find 1 in 3 or 4, but I think that the voter turnout, considering what's going on the Republican and Democratic side, may be the lowest voter turnout in decades if Trump's removed on one side and Bernie on the other. So that's my prediction, that you're going to start seeing, you'll see a pretty close election, but a low voter turnout because of the corruption that's happening, and people will be totally fed up with the media. That's what I predict will happen here. And of course, with there's an interesting CD that he has in the back here, Secede or Die, and we are at war with un-Americans. And of course, it shows un-American Paul Ryan. Paul Ryan, of course, is part of the cabal as the Speaker of the House that passed the omnibus bill, gave $2.2 trillion to Obama to continue to support Planned Parenthood, which is murdering babies and selling body parts. And they continue to harass the Christian organization that actually here in California had the Attorney General who's running for the Senate for California, and she, after being abused in an article in Los Angeles, decided to come down heavy and send in a number of agents to attack and remove videos and other materials from the home of this Christian activist in Northern California. I think it's obscene politicians do this, and they actually can be prosecuted. So he's been advised by attorneys, including those at Fox News, to actually proceed with a federal suit against this state Attorney General, who's actually using her office and abusing her office to try to get political points to become senator for the state of California. So, I mean, this is pretty disgusting behavior, but, par for the course. If we don't get rid of these corrupt politicians and the corrupt system that allows them to exist, we're going to continue to have a corrupt government that will destroy the economy, destroy the culture, destroy families, destroy our borders, and we'll have a massive increase in the next 20 years of Muslims. Most of them are just passive, but they're part of the problem because they passively are being led by extreme Islam. And whether it's Sharia law, which is a real thing, because as Bill Warner says, the biggest problem is not we call the what's called jihad of murder, which is pretty nasty and it's scary, where you're blown up or your wife's blown up or you're blown up in some shopping center or airport or you're exposed to a radiological bomb. The worst is the jihad of education, where educational books are now being Sharia compliant, or the jihad of money, where they are going in and buying up parts of universities, like in the East in the United States, where Saudi and other agencies are buying out entire departments or whole universities. And the jihad of politics, where we have a closet Muslim in the House right now that Barack Obama, that actually was trained at a hadith in Malaysia, that literally said the best prayer and song he heard was the song for prayer, call for prayer in the morning. And of course, we look at Hillary Clinton. Her first lady, by the way, is Abedin. And if you look at this, what I call this galmance, where they have this, in a sense, lesbian romance between her and is basically using a principle in the Quran where they can do taqiyya and maruna, which even violates principles of the Quran, so they can gain power. They literally do anything, including murder or political corruption or things that are against their own, quote, religious edicts, just to gain power. And and Hillary have a galmance going on, I call it, instead of romance. And, when you hear the kind of comments going back and forth, this is pretty disgusting. But she is the daughter of the woman who's one of the heads of the Muslim Brotherhood. So we have Obama tied to the Muslim Brotherhood through his so-called brother. We have Hillary Clinton tied to the Muslim Brotherhood directly through Abedin, who had access to all these emails, and then to try to say she didn't have any, we call it intention to violate laws. Excuse me, 22 of those emails are above top secret. The fact is, when she has her own server, it's not just a matter of accidentally, it's a matter of if you were incompetent and did something illegal, you're guilty of a crime. But I can tell you what I saw from the report last night about Obama's speech. They're almost certainly going to give her a pardon and give her a pass. People still won't trust her. The voter turnout will be poor. Many of Bernie Sanders' people, if he doesn't get the nomination, will not vote for Hillary. Hillary will, if she wins, it'll be by a squeaker, because if they remove Trump, the danger is Cruz may come in, but they're trying to jump over him because the establishment hates him. He's the most hated senator in the United States Senate, and they know how corrupt and sneaky and smart he is. They're trying to jump over both Cruz and Trump. So that means low voter turnout, a squeaker election, who knows who's going to win. If Hillary gets in, it'll be awful. It'll be absolutely awful. And if one of these so-called establishment Republicans is in, it'll be also awful, with these warmongering members of the Project for the New American Century, and basically a Bushite, another substitute for Bush, just like little Marco. So what I see happening is a very ugly year, more illegal wars, more economic devastation. And so if you don't get in carrot bars, if you don't take care of your health outside of your stupid doctors that want to medicate the heck out of you, if you don't want to get into functional medicine and be your own healthcare provider with Dr. You, you're going to suffer financially, physically, and spiritually if you're led by these so-called happy churches and the happy pastors that are going to lie to you. So you get the truth here in the Nutrimedical report, not cut, not diluted, not giving you a little sideways, got to cover your butt, as they say, legally for the doctors. So to heck with the patients if they get sick or die. We got to make sure there's no child abuse. We got to make sure there's no whatever. Really? How about we need to make sure there's no human abuse by a system that's evil? When we come back, we're going to have an interesting discussion with Lowell Ponte coming up tomorrow. Carrot Bars University, Tim Alexander back, and Jonathan Gray's here on Wednesday, and coming up, Mark Gaffney on Thursday. Amazing new updates on 9/11.